goes, so PS4 HEN is evolving at a rapid pace. We're seeing some pretty significant updates that we're gonna go over in this video. So PS4 HEN being the open source alternative to Gold HEN. Gold HEN is fantastic. It has lots of additional features that are not in this version of HEN yet. But of course, the problem with Golden is that it doesn't support all firmwares. So if we take a look here, you can see the supported firmwares on Golden are just the kind of main jailbreak firmwares over the years. But there are certain firmwares that are not supported, and of course, sometimes you can be on a PS4 that's not able to update to one of the supported firmwares. If you have, for instance, a broken Blu-ray drive on your console. But the advantage of this version of HEN is that it supports firmware all the way from 5.05 up to 12.02, which includes all firmwares in between. So in my previous video about the latest beta release of Gold 10, which now supports 12.0 and 12.02, I was seeing a lot of people commenting about them being on 11.02, 11.50, 11.52, and you know, when is it coming for them? Obviously, it will eventually get support for those firmwares. In the meantime, you can use this open source alternative, which already has support for 11.02, 11.50, and 11.52, so definitely give this a try. Because there's a lot of new features that have been added. Originally, it was just your basic functionality like the homebrew enabler, just to get homebrew and fake packages running. But now it has a whole plugin feature that's including patches for Shell UI to allow more features, as well as Prex plugins for a kernel log server and an FTP server that are now built in. Now specifically, this is included in the PS4 HEN plugins repo from Illusion. Here we can just go to the releases and download the latest version. You can download the plugins separately here from this zip file, or you can just download the homebrew enabler bin file itself, which will install the plugins automatically when you launch it. So we can just download this hen.bin file from the plugins repo, and then we can just copy this over to a USB drive. So obviously, depending on what jailbreak you're using, you'll have to install this differently. I'm using the latest jailbreak with the Japanese game with the auto Lua loader. So I'm just going to take a USB drive that's formatted in SFAT format and copy the bin file inside in the root of the drive, and then I can rename it to payload.bin, which will allow the auto loader to recognize and load it from the USB. So we'll do a few tests with the package installer. I've copied a package file to the root of the USB. I'll also copy one into a PKG folder here as well to see if it only finds package files on the root, or if it has the directory depth scanning that a Gold HEN includes. So we'll go ahead and copy that in just for testing. And at that point, we'll go and unplug the USB drive and plug it into our PS4 OK. So moving back over to the PlayStation 4, of course, I can run the jailbreak using the Japanese Artemis engine game, which I have the auto Lua loader already set up on. So that's going to load the payload from the USB and then transfer it to the hard drive. But I believe I already have the payload up on the hard drive, so I'll just go ahead and launch it. Welcome to HEN version to 0.0. And now, what it's gonna do is it waits and 5 seconds and then restarts the Shell UI, which allows us to enable the custom menus that are now included in this version. So we're just gonna wait for this to do its thing. And there it goes. So it reloads Shell UI and we are back up and running. So first thing you'll notice, of course, is the little HUD in the top left-hand corner. That displays a bunch of information about your console. This is something you typically see on test kits and development kits, but by restarting the Shell UI, it seems they're able to get it working here on our retails. So as you can see, it's got the system software version at the top. It's also got the amount of storage being used on the hard drive. Few other pieces of information. Your IP address is displayed, which is very handy, because you don't have to go into the settings to get your IP. If it changes, if you have a dynamic IP address, it also shows your MAC address. And then also the model name is also displayed there as well. And then also PS4 HEN version to 0.0b. So pretty handy there if you find this distracting. It will go away whenever you open any applications. So like if we open up the internet browser, it disappears, or even if we just go into the settings menu, it disappears. So it's only displayed while you're on the home menu, and maybe in the future we can maybe move it around. I would kind of rather have it maybe in the bottom left or bottom right. We'll see if that might be something that can be done in the future. But anyway, as you can see, if we head over to our settings, we now have our HEN settings showing up here. And of course, the debug settings are also still available there at the bottom. But we now have access to this HEN settings at the top. So in here, we've got our payload options. So we can install package files from the hard disk. And we can also install package files from the USB storage. So if I select USB we've got our Minecraft package on here. And it even shows you the file path where that's stored on the USB. But it's not detecting the one that I put in the folder. So they do still need to be in the root of the USB drive. You can also install package files to the hard drive. Now there is an FTP server that is currently running on the console. So if we switch back over to our computer and open up an FTP client like FileZilla and enter the IP address of our PS4, which is handily available in that little notification there. So we can then go ahead and enter 2121 as the port number and over to our at PS4. So we can see here we've got the data folder. And in the data folder, you can create a PKG folder, and then you can put any package files in here. So let's say I want to take this PT package and copy it in there to upload it to my PS4. And once the package file is now uploaded to the package directory, in the data folder, it should then show up here. If we go to install package files from hard disk, and we can see the package file showing up. And again, it shows us the file path of where that is installed. And we can go ahead and actually install it onto the console itself. Yeah, it does not delete the package file after it's been installed. So maybe that's something that could be added in the future. Or at least as an option next. We have the payload options, which only take effect when you reload the homebrew enabler payload. So when you rerun the jailbreak, we've got the option to enable exploit fixes, attempts to repatch bad/missing patches that should have been made by the exploit. This helps ensure system stability after initial jailbreak process. So there are some older jailbreaks or some implementations that were not applying all of the necessary patches and causing instability errors. So if you are running into stability issues, you can enable this option, which should help improve stability. We've also got memory mapping patches. Enables memory mapping patches for decrypting binary files. These patches allow the system to properly handle executables and libraries. We've also got block firmware updates, which unmounts the update partition, which prevents any system updates downloaded onto the console. We also have an ASL, or address space layout randomization for cheats. So that is also enabled. All of those things are things that you should just leave for the most part, but this is interesting. We've got the enable no BD patches. So if you have a broken Blu-ray drive, you cannot update your system. It needs the Blu-ray drive to be detected to update. But you can enable this patch, and then it will allow you to update. You can get to a firmware that maybe has more support for things like Gold 10. So that is a pretty handy feature that's built in there, especially given the fact that this version of HEN supports so many firmware versions. So if you are on an older firmware, it's likely that you do have support for HEN, that you can then run this enable the no BD patch and then able to update your system. So next we have got the target ID spoofer. So changes the console's reported target ID for development or region-specific functionality. So currently it is set to none, but you can set it to all of these different regions for the console, including some interesting ones like Kratos, arcade cabinet, and then also you've got things like a dev kit and test kit options that you can also enable. And then we've got skip userland patches, which skips applying the shellcore, Shell UI, and remote play patches, which is useful for test kit users. Then we have the option to write the HEN plugin files to the which is what was done to actually get loaded in the first place because when we load the HEN payload, it writes those prex plugins for the FTP payload, the Shell UI plugin, as well as the clog plugin, and it writes those to the data folder inside a HEN folder, and then executes them. So we bet that's how we got the plugins on the hard drive. We don't even have to copy them manually just by running. It does that automatically with that option. And then we have the option to enable and disable the plugins entirely from here. So yeah, those are the menu options that are currently available. And you have to bear in mind how quickly things are developing with this version of HEN, because you know, just a couple of weeks ago, we didn't even have a Kellogg server. We didn't have any custom menus like this built into the system. And just in the space of a couple of weeks, we've seen all of this development, including the support for all of the different firmwares that were previously unsupported. So yeah, this version of HEN is evolving at a very rapid pace at the moment, which is fantastic to see. So yeah, just wanted to kind of go over the improvements that have been made to this version of HEN. You can use this on firmwares that do not support gold like HEN 11.DOT0 to 11.DOT5. If you're on those firmwares and you've been waiting for gold HEN, you don't need to wait, you can just use this version of HEN. In the meantime, big shout out obviously to Elasive and The Illusion for all of the developments here that are being made on this version of HEN and any other developers involved. So hope you guys enjoyed this one or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe.